Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to another episode of Basic Helper Duties. Last week I done the very first episode of this little series of what all to put in your rod bucket. This week I'm going to do what all to bring to a weld. Now keep in mind this is just the basics. I've got a variety of things here, but the basic things to bring to a weld. It obviously depends on whether you're on big pipe, little pipe, fabrication, tie-ins, fire line. It depends on where you're at, but I'm just going to give you guys a rundown of the basics. So let's get started. The very basics I'm going to say is your remote cord, your ground, and your stinger. Obviously we need those things. A lot of times, like we can use this job for example that I'm on now. It's 42 inch and I've been on tie-ins. So usually the first thing you're going to pull out is your remote cord, and obviously your remote. Plug it in. Little tip on the remote on this machine, I don't think it's that big a deal, but on your SA200s, things that are not AC power, it is a good habit to wait to start your machine until you plug in your remote. So drag your leads to the weld, plug in your remote, and then go back and fire up the machine, or ask the welder to fire up his machine. Not so much plugging it in, but unplugging it is more important. You don't want to unplug it with the machine running. So just so we're clear, on SA200s, you do not want to unplug the remote while the machine is running. You want to shut the machine off and then unplug the remote. But the whole idea of rolling out the remote cord first is so you can go ahead and clean up the ends, and then that way that's ready. They can start making the line up as far as being on tie-ins. But any other job, fabrication, whatever, you can roll them all out. Doesn't really matter what order. Again, every welder is different. That's one thing to keep in mind. Ask your welder, communicate with your welder. He might like one rolled out before the other. Another thing to keep in mind when rolling out your leads is to try not to cross them. If you're brother-in-law with somebody, or like working in a shop and you got a string across the shop or whatever, try not to cross your leads very much, just to keep it from getting tangled up. And it's just a lot easier to roll up that way, and it's just more organized. So a lot of this is just personal preference, welder's personal preference. Oh, have mercy. So we got remote cord, welding leads, rod bucket, of course, with everything you need in your rod bucket. If you want to know what all goes in a rod bucket, refer to the first episode that I posted last week. We'll put a link here, or a little suggested video right here. And then of course your grinder. You're going to need the grinder, prep the ends, grind the weld, buff the weld. So another thing you're going to need is your propane bottle with a weed burner. I don't have a weed burner on the truck right now. I've been working off the sled. But with the weed burner to preheat the pipe. Most jobs anymore, no matter whether it's hard pipe, soft pipe, they're going to want it preheated, especially if it's wintertime. And then of course mud board. Most generally all jobs, unless you're on small pipe fabrication, you may not need your mud board, but if you're on any kind of pipe that's 16 inch or above on fabrication, depending on how high it is and whatnot, you're most likely going to want your mud board. The welder's going to most likely want his mud board with the hillside. You can use this hillside not only on the side of hills, but also just to make your mud board higher. Use it as a step stool also, step stool and lay on. So some optional things are going to be things like a ladder on bigger pipes so you can reach the top, or on welds that are high, you're going to need a ladder. If you guys haven't seen it on the day in the life of a welder helper, them blue clamps that we have, those are called ratchet clamps, and this is the ratchet that we use to tighten and loosen up the clamps. So the company will supply this ratchet. And then of course you got a 10 or 12 pound sledge that you'll use to hit the clamps back and forth to get all your high-low out of the welds. And of course you're going to need a grounding device. Usually I don't have a grasshopper on the truck. Again, I've been working off the sled. I guess it got put on the sled, but if you guys haven't seen or don't know what a grasshopper is and you're watching this, I've got another video that you can refer back to on grasshopper and what it's used for. It's just a grounding device to keep the arc inside the bevel. So, or a grounding clamp. I also talk about this in the grasshopper video. You want some type of grounding device, that way you can put your ground on the pipe somewhere without arcing outside the bevels. So very important. This kind of grounding device is usually used for the end of a piece of pipe, like on fabrication, or if you're stocking a joint on tie-ins or something, you can put this on the end of the pipe to get a good ground. You can just clamp that ground to the pipe, but sometimes it's thicker pipe and that ground clamp will not, it's not big enough to go over it, or some inspectors won't allow that ground by itself. They require you to have some kind of clamp like this. That way it's sure enough grounded. If it is hot out and you need an umbrella for shade, some welders have these slam holes. Slam into the ground, works real good on tie-ins or fabrication if you're not on a pad or something where you can drive this in the ground, stick your umbrella in. Or they also have these that you can ratchet strap to the pipe, stick an umbrella in. Homemade job. Sometimes they make them like at the beginning of the job, you know, they make several of these for welders to have. Most important of all, you're going to want a radio to listen to, especially if you're on heavy wall, going to be welding for like 4 hours or more. Radio is very, very important. So, another thing that I do not have on the truck, I guess they got put on the sled also, is splatter pads. On mainline, if you guys noticed, a lot of this pipe, or all mainline, the pipe is coated. It's got a coating on it. And to protect that coating and the integrity of the pipe, we use splatter pads. It's just a thin piece of rubber, at least 18 inches back, to protect that coating from the splatter from the weld. It's just something that inspectors and the gas company requires us to do on mainline. On fabrication, maybe not so much. A lot of your fabrication, not all of it, but a lot of it is on bare pipe. You may not need it there. Some inspectors still require it, depending on what jobs you're on, but splatter pads, it is something you will need to bring to the welds. So a lot of things to remember. Every weld and every situation is different. You won't need all this for one weld. Sometimes you might need more, depending on what size of pipe you're on, what type of job you're on. So, but I think that's going to be it. I think that's going to cover it. That is going to be it for today's video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope it was helpful. We will see you guys next Friday. Go check out arosswelding.com if you guys have not already. And remember, learn something every day. I'm not sure why I'm drinking coffee, because it is like 90 degrees out here. I'm going to say it's an addiction problem.